question we hear, not often, but time to time, is ratios of the different components of a system. You know,
The price ratio.
yeah, like if I spend $500 on a headphone, do I need to get a $500 amp? Do I need to get a $500 DAC? Does it matter?
It just doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter. That's
Well,
an old movie.
I think there used to be a time where this made more sense, and now it's kind of dependent. Because especially at the high end, if you're spending $5,000 on a headphone, let's say, that doesn't mean you need to spend $5,000 on a DAC or an amp. In fact, we have people that spend more than that. We have people that spend far less than that. There's people running $5,000 headphones on a few $100 amps, and they're happy with it. It sounds pretty good.
Well, on the rotary thing here we have examples. For example, we got the HiFi iCan, or XCan, sorry.
Yep.
It's like $300. They got their new Diablo, $900. And we got Sony's gold-plated toy there. How much was that?
It's like $2,400 or something.
$200. I don't know.
Yeah, it was
It's a
over
lot.
$3,000.
Yeah.
Well, the gold plating really added a lot to it. So all three of those will drive these headphones. Although the gold plated Sony's a little quiet on the quiet side because it's an all-in-one DAP. It's got a lot more stuff in it. These are just amps. But
Well, and DACs.
and DACs, that's true. There's DACs and amps. That's a full-blown DAP player. But bottom line is that on this little thing here, you've got a range that goes tenfold ratio, and all three will play on the same headphone.
Yeah, and they do pretty good.
Yeah. So now, which one did you buy? That's the question, right?
Right.
Well, it's not so simple.
No. Well, there's a lot more options than this, too.
Yeah. Right. Then multiply that by 100.
Yeah.
It's kind of falling apart now because the range of gear that you could get is huge. You could get stuff that's cheap and terrible, pretty inexpensive and quite good, and even in the high end, you get pretty considerable variation sometimes. So the price is potentially an indicator of the performance, but it doesn't necessarily tell you if you're going to get good performance with your other gear. If you just match the prices, it doesn't really tell you that much. I think where you're cost constrained heavily in manufacturing, that kind of gives you a better indicator. So if you're buying like $60 headphones, then you probably don't want to be spending $10 on a DAC amp thing. It's probably going to be pretty bad.
You're probably just plugging it into a laptop or something.
Right.
You probably don't
Either-
even have anything.
Yeah.
You're plugging into something you already got, or you want it to be potentially even more expensive than the headphone in those cases. So depends on what extreme you're on, but
I think the
It's
most
difficult.
people, though, we're talking about people who have gone beyond that. Here, I think the question comes
Yeah,
from
you're looking
somebody.
at components.
They're thinking, well, okay, now I got this better headphone or whatever. Now what do I do? And they're still plugging it in a laptop, but now So now to match up with that, right? How much should I spend? I think that's kind of the question, right? And the same would hold true with a $3,000 headphone too. How much should I spend?
you know,
You
every different price category has its own different perception of value. Because to some people, if you're spending thousands on a headphone, it doesn't really matter if something's $50 or $100. The price can be kind of inconsequential, relatively speaking. The extra $50 means nothing. But on the low end, it could be substantial. So it kind of really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, whether you're trying to upgrade in the future, you want it good out of the gate, what features and whatnot you need. Because a lot of times, if you want heavily featured gear, you can't even get it in the high end. You got to buy all separates. You can't really get a whole lot of products that do it all in one that are super expensive and amazing in every way. So you kind of got to consider what you want it to do, what you expect it to sound like, how much you're willing to spend, whether or not you want to upgrade or future-proof.
Well, I think it really falls apart when you get to the stratosphere, though.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, what are you just trying to make it more expensive by making it out of gold? Because like, if you have $500,000 speakers, it's hard to even buy $500,000 amps to go with it and a $500,000
You
DAC,
could,
right?
but yeah.
Yeah, like
You're right.
You're just doing it for the price at
Yeah,
that point.
right.
I don't know. So yeah, once you get high enough in price, then it really.
Yeah, I'd say if you have 500,000 speakers, I say 200 grand's a good number for the amps.
200.
Yeah.
For a pair of amps.
Well, yeah,
they're going to be
again,
monoblocks
yeah.
at this point. You got 2 amps, one for each speaker.
Now you can't go the other way either, because if your speakers are 500,000,
Yeah,
in
right.
principle,
Why bother?
Well, you're not going to use a $250 receiver with them, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you just
could.
wouldn't.
You
Yeah.
just
Right.
wouldn't.
Right. I wonder if some people will do it.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah. You'd have to chastise the dealer that sold them that one. Oh, you could use this on a Yamaha receiver, no problem.
Yeah, you could.
Good. Yeah.
Never seen that though.
It's not particularly
Could sound pretty
smart
good.
idea.
I don't know.
Could.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah, that's all you need.
So you got a one
big
hell of a
Yamaha
ratio
receiver.
there. Yeah.
That would be one hell of a ratio, yeah.
I think on both extremes it kind of falls apart. If you're in like the under $100, $200 range on a headphone, picking the rest of the gear in that range, it might make sense. But for a lot of people, they're either going to use it on what they already have or a laptop or something like that, or their phone. That's going to be more common because a lot of times the improvement from something like that to like a $50 amp can be not that substantial, but it depends on your headphone. Depends on how hard it is to drive.
Right.
So it's complicated,
Needs
like
to
everything
work
else,
first,
right? It needs to work. But if it works good on your portable thing that you already have, well, you don't need to spend more necessarily just because your headphone cost $100 and this thing costs $40 or something.
And like you said, you're right. I think it does fall apart on the extremes because now you look at, I'm quite familiar with the upper end of things because I've been in a high-end 2-channel audio for decades, and it's the same thing holds true when you watch how people made up with, say, a pair of speakers. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, and everyone tends to have a different priority. Some people prioritize the cables. Some people prioritize the amps. Some people will prioritize the preamp. And some people don't give a shit and just buy the top shelf everything. They'll get, so, I mean, I think the speakers are tend to be a majority of it, I think,
Yeah.
which is kind of what we recommend with headphones, too. It's kind of, that's where you want to focus. Because if you don't get that the way you want it, then...
Yeah, usually getting the best actual audio emitting device, you got the headphone, the speaker, that's probably the best start you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because then it doesn't matter. Then you could have a $200,000 amp and DAC
Yeah.
into a $100 speaker.
You could. We've actually done it.
Yeah. If you have the things around to do it,
We
just
put a
for fun.
pair of bookshelves from, what the hell is that company?
They were Usher S520s.
Oh, yeah, they're cute little bookshelves. Yeah, nice. I mean, and Usher has a pretty good way of making...
Yeah, they're not super. They're $500 a pair, I think.
Yeah,
so not
they were
super
nice.
cheap.
It comes in all different colors. Yeah, I forget when it was. It had to be a good dozen years ago at a show.
Yeah.
And we had a big 2-channel setup, with nice stuff in the room. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how much, but let's say the system was $50,000 in the room, right?
Yeah, mono box and everything.
Yeah, and then we just, for shits and giggles, take these 2 bookshelves and put them up on stands and hook up to this system. It's like, damn, these little speakers are amazing.
It was actually surprisingly good.
Yeah,
in that setup.
they were doing
Because there's
bass
people
and everything.
Because we had the full floor standing speakers next to them,
Right.
And people were asking which one was playing. They
Oh,
couldn't
right.
even
We
tell.
left it for a while.
And they had these
Yeah.
little bookshelves.
Yeah,
They
people
were-
didn't know that the little
So
bookshelves
that in
were
that
playing.
case,
Yeah.
it was surprising.
Yeah, blew
Because they
our
were
minds.
actually doing bass, like for this little, like
Yeah, it had to be a
5-inch.
5-inch,
Yeah.
5-inch woofer. Yeah,
So-
in a hotel room at, I don't know what show was it, CES? I don't remember.
It was CES.
Yeah,
Well, that is uncommon.
Yeah.
yeah. It was, but it blew our mind, and it just shows the go you
Right.
that here's a $500 speaker playing with in the big leagues because it's backed by $50,000 worth of electronics and cabling and so on. Everything's tweaked out
Yeah.
for the good speakers.
That's the thing. Everybody was surprised.
So it turns out those speakers are pretty good for the money. And you run into that sometimes.
It's really hard
It's
to
rare.
know, though. It is uncommon.
It's rare.
You got to try it.
Yeah.
And nobody would normally ever try that.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of speakers would probably just fall apart. When
Yeah.
They wouldn't get any better. They'd probably get worse.
Yes.
But it just so happens it must have been a well-engineered little speaker. And it performed when you stepped up the system. So, that's what I see in the high end. Now, in the high end, you see people mix. The ratios are just wildly all over the place. It just depends on your priorities and the size of your wallet,
Yeah, I think in the headphone space, if you're in the few $100 range to few $1,000 range, the ratio kind of works, sort of. I think it does better than it does at the extremes for sure. If you're spending $500 or $1,000 on a headphone, you're probably going to want to be in that range for an amp or a DAC.
Agreed.
Within a reasonable factor, at least. And that's just because of kind of sort of manufacturing limitations. That's kind of the price point where you could make something pretty good, but you're still kind of constrained. You're not just throwing, whatever, these amazing, super high-end fancy parts at it.
Yeah, you're not going to have big
Right.
power supplies, and there's a lot of limitations
Right.
in terms of parts count to build a product under $1,000.
It's just kind of a physical constraint, and it's hard to get around it. So if you're well below that in your amp, your DAC, or your other gear, you're probably going to get really significant limitations. And if you're well above that, you may not see as much gains as you would like. The value might not be there. It's not like it won't work. It'll work either way. I mean, you could plug a super high-end headphone into a laptop, a phone, or whatever, audio comes out. Doesn't mean it's going to sound very good and doesn't really make sense. If you think about the value of the total system, and if you're spending $4,000 or so on a headphone, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to plug it into a phone unless you know that's what it has to be. For whatever reason, you just need it to work on that, then maybe that makes sense for some people. But for the most part, you're probably going to get better value out of spending less on the headphone and actually putting supporting gear in that's a little bit better than that.
Well, and that's something else to consider too, is that you hear that a lot where people are like, well, I've spent more money on this and it didn't make any difference.
Yeah.
You hear that argument a lot and it's like, well, that's not really accurate. Maybe it was true for your case, but in general, isn't the way it works.
Well,
there's a whole nother world out there when you start stepping up beyond a certain level.
For sure.
It's a classic, there's a lot of factors here situation. So.
Yeah, right, sure. Yeah. How much you can afford. I mean,
Right.
I see a lot of people that go around in circles and stay within the same price point because that's their comfort zone. So they're never really leaving it. They're always staying in $1,000 range for whatever they buy.
You see a lot of that.
They never try anything for $3, $4, $5 grand. They just don't realize where you can go with it.
Don't want to spend that much money.
Yeah. Well, maybe, or they don't feel comfortable spending that much money. I think is what it is. It's a comfort zone.
There's also a group of people that just like headphones, and they just want to have 20 headphones.
Well, that's true.
When a new headphone comes out, they just want to buy it.
Yeah.
So to them, maybe the value or the ratio isn't important. They get gear they like for one reason or another, and they know they're just going to keep buying headphones either way.
In that case, it's a revolving door for headphones. So what the hell,
Right.
Some of them keep them. I mean, they call them collectors, right?
Collectors.
Yeah, but you see that less in us now. I think it used to be more prevalent. Now you're seeing people narrow it down to like probably two or three.
It is a bit less common.
Good headphones, and they're done. And then they just sell them off because they know that they're just going to sit there collecting dust.
Yeah, it's hard to use.
I guess that is
Yeah.
definitely ultimately what happens. It's like, I don't even use these anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So hopefully that explains to people the ratio.
Kind of.
It's a variable that depends on you. And
Right.
there ain't no other way to look at it.
Yep.
Just depends on you.
If you have no other foundation, I think it kind of makes sense, sort of, at least in the mid-range. In the ultra-low, the ultra-high, kind of falls apart. But in the meat, it's I guess a general rule of thumb that's reasonable.
The general rule is, as you get to the upper end of things, expect to spend more on everything.
Pretty much.
And that's the way it works.
Yeah.
The's no getting around it. All right.
Otherwise, you're not going to get good performance out of it. Yeah.
You're wasting the performance. At that point, you might as well step down on the speakers or a headphone and just be happy, with what you got. But when you start getting the upper end, just expect to expand on that. And the thing is, the cool thing about it is the stuff will continue to expand with that. Usually, you start improving the electronics, you improve the DAC, you improve this, play with cables, and you start to realize that your focus does change, one, because a lot of the problems you were having in the lower end of things are no longer there. So now you're looking for new problems, basically, right? Like, then they're finite, they're tiny, they're little problems, but now you got rid of all the old problems you used to have. There was bright, or it was dark sounding, or dull, or didn't have the resolution, or didn't have any bass. You get in the upper end of things and things start to level out more. Now things are nice. So now you're looking for, okay, how do I improve upon that?
Well, you get more nitpicky.
Well, that too, right? Yeah.
Things that are bothering you, everybody else is like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But
that's true.
You've heard it through the progression.
Yeah. The joke is there ain't no going back.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get in the upper end of things.
A lot of times that's true.
Yeah, because you're just hearing the mistakes that you already lived through before, and I don't want to go there anymore. It's kind of like drinking, a jug of wine that costs $10 versus a nice Napa Valley, a nice bottle of Napa Valley Red. I mean, I'm not a wine guy, but there's a big difference, and you might not realize it till you enjoy a nice California wine versus something else, and it's just the nature of the beast. It is what it is. It's humans being subjective. You could use chocolate as an example too. I don't know. What would you use as an example of stepping through things? Like what would be? Well,
it really depends on your experience. I think audio is a little bit harder to convey than a lot of things.
Yeah.
Food, I think for most people, it's something you have more experience with
You
comparatively.
gotta eat every day.
Right? Yeah, you could have a cheeseburger from one place, and it could be okay. It's fine, good value, but you could have an amazing cheeseburger, and maybe it costs 10 times as much.
Yeah.
So Is it worth it? Well, it depends on the person. To some people,
sometimes.
absolutely. But to other people, it's not a big deal because they're not that type of person. Everything else they're going to have in their meal is not super fancy or classy, and they're really not going to enjoy it enough to get money out of it.
You've been stepping through steaks through this year. I see a lot of different online frozen steaks, right? You've been ordering and stuff like that, wherever you get them from.
All over the place.
And what's the range on that? Like when you get into the upper echelons of, I don't know how much, you tell us. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't really go that
I mean,
high.
price pound per pound versus taste.
Well, it definitely gets better, but
Yeah.
it starts to get to it. The problem is it's too expensive to have the better steaks
On a regular
on
basis.
any kind of regular basis.
Yeah, I hear that.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're significantly better, but
Yeah.
it ain't worth it. You know?
Yeah. Right.
So.
Well, I don't think eating steak every day of
Well,
the
that
week
too. Yeah.
is really good
you
for you.
don't have it every day. No. But,
You know, well, maybe some people got the genetics to handle that, but it sounds like it's not a good idea all around over a long term.
But yeah, you could spend anywhere from $6 or $7 a pound up to $200 a pound. And is the $200 a pound better? Yeah. But
yeah, right.
You know,
It's the same deal.
is it worth it?
Yeah. So somewhere you find your average.
Right.
What average price for this works for you?
Yeah.
Like what'd you fall into?
Uh,
About 25, 30?
No, probably like 12.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And it's good enough.
Good enough.
Yeah, so there you go. So I see it's way cheaper than 200.
Right.
But
A
that
pound.
point of diminishing returns is different for every person.
Yeah, that's
It really
true.
depends on how much they value it.
Right.
Some people, they could try something that's high end and it doesn't really mean much to them. It's not important to them
Right.
because they have other priorities. or
McDonald's is
something.
just fine.
Right. There's plenty of people like that.
Yeah,
It's
agreed.
fine.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of got to figure it out for yourself. So it's hard to really establish. But as a general rule, I guess that's what this ratio was set up for. You know, if you spend about as much on all the gear, yeah, you're probably relatively safe.
No, you got to tell me where you get that $12 a pound stuff that you like.
Oh,
to
yeah.
Because I want to try that too. I mean, if you can average down to that a pound, that's pretty good for steaks, you know?
Oh, it's some local New York grass-fed steaks.
Oh, yeah. See, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Reasonable price. They just opened a butcher around the corner. You've tried him yet?
I have not been there yet.
I haven't tried it either, but he's got a good selection of sausages.
Mm.
I'm really, really got to do that before the summer's over here. You know, you don't have a barbecue at home, so
We did.
yeah, you did. Yeah, you kind of. Yeah, you did.
It's the whole thing.
yeah, yeah. No longer. It's been
Yeah.
recycled.
Yeah, the winter took it out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
A few winters.
snowpocalypse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a few. Oh, his weight, snow weight.
Yes.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, those side shelves, they don't
Yeah.
build them like they used to, you know. Yeah, that's the one thing. The next time I look at grills, I'm paying attention to how those side shelves attach.
Mm.
Because I bought this that was a relatively nice grill. You got to get one every so many years.
Yeah.
Everything just starts to wear out on it after about 10 years. So.
Yeah.
Was that an issue for you too?
Yeah, the side things just, I mean,
Oh, really?
they're not attached right. You lift up on them and they just drop. They're
Hmm.
made to like go down real easy. Well, they
Yeah.
go down real easy no matter what you do.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
like, I'm afraid to put anything on it because I'm afraid you're going to drop on me with
Yeah.
food on it, you know? And I try to move it like I'm used to my old one. You grab the shelves, they're bolted on, you
Right.
could move it. These things, you can't do anything with it. You got to grab the grill.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I just took my shelves off.
Oh, well, see, now that would solve the problem.
Yeah.
Problem solved. Put table in there.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's the problem. My grill's really heavy though.
Yeah,
But, and
well,
then-
same here.
so yeah, I'd always go to move it with the shelves, and yeah, they're just
Yeah. I mean, what are
Yeah.
they thinking? I
Yeah.
don't even know what they're thinking.
Well,
You know?
this was about 7 feet of snow.
Yeah, well, that'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, that's a full collapse.
Yeah.
it collapsed.
Yeah, here the wind blows and it just pops the shelf up and it drops down because it's made to do that. You know,
No,
it's like, yeah, they
no, I
got
didn't
like,
have
they
that
got like
problem.
one screw keeping this thing from doing that.
Mhm.
So anyway, bottom line is, yeah, next time I'm looking at grills, the whole thing. If I'm gonna have shelves, those shelves are gonna be bolted to the grill. Otherwise,
There
I
you
ain't
go.
buying it. Yeah, I want the thing. I want to be able to pick up the thing from the shelves.
Well, I looked for aftermarket shelves. The only solution is you just get tables that are made to hold a grill. That's
Yeah.
the only. Nobody makes any strong shelves
Yeah,
that fold because they're all made to fold. Is
You're
the
probably
problem.
Why
better
would
off.
you want it to fold?
I don't know.
You're like
Oh,
tucking it in a
compact.
yeah,
shed or
right. Where
something?
you, yeah, where
Yeah,
you sticking this in
shatter.
there?
I don't do that.
Garage.
I don't. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't. I put a cover on it over the winter. It sits outside.
I
It
don't
doesn't
put a cover
care.
on it.
It's not alive. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Well, we were laying off
You're
on a
getting
tangent.
really,
Okay, I want to know about those $12 steaks.
yeah,
Maybe we'll
yeah.
have to post it where you get it on the,
Oh,
in,
yeah.
in the comments so people can see where you get it to.
Mm-hmm.
This place will have an explosion of people ordering meat.
Yeah.
It might be a bad thing. You won't be able to
It's
get it
already a
anymore.
problem.
Oh, yeah.
They're already
They can't
always
keep
out of
up.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
figures.
It's
maybe
not
we should,
you
maybe
can't
we should
consistently
post
get
it.
anything.
If you want to know, PM us or something, or
Uh.
email us. Yeah, we're going to shh. Only if you're interested. Thanks everyone for watching, and take care of yourselves. And oh, by the way, I always keep forgetting to mention.
Abyssstore.com?
Yeah, well, that's in every abyssstore.com. You can go buy pillows, blankets, whatever the hell we got in there.
We don't
Mugs.
have blankets.
Yeah. No, but what I keep forgetting to mention is all of our videos are in podcast form.
Oh, right.
And if you went, for example, if you went, hey Siri, play Top of the Line podcast, I'm pretty sure that Siri will find us. And if she don't, maybe just add Abyss to the word. But anyway, we probably just set off for everybody's iPhone and everything to find our podcast. But if you don't get a chance to watch us, it's easy to find. You just throw it on your phone or whatever, and ask your phone to do it while you're in the car.
It's
driving.
on all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, any of the podcasts. Yeah, I know there's like 15 podcast channels. We have all the videos on it. Anyway, I always forget to mention it. We got to start mentioning it too. So.
Kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because we kind of watch videos. But anyway, take care, everyone. Thank you.